"Get your hands off my wife." The words came out low, calm, but the kind of calm that freezes a room. Nora Caldwell, president of the Willowcrest HOA, didn't move. Her manicured hand stayed clamped around Evelyn's wrist like she was seizing contraband. "She can't sit here," Nora said. "This section's for patients, not homeowners pretending to faint to dodge an inspection fine." Her tone was honeyed, venom hidden under civility. Around us, the ER waiting room fell silent, the kind of silence that comes right before a crash. The nurse at the desk looked from Nora's designer badge to Evelyn's swollen belly, unsure who to believe. "She's 7 months pregnant," I said, stepping closer, "and she was told to sit while they checked her vitals." Nora smiled the way people do when they think they've already won. "I don't care who told her. Your wife's been ignoring our notices for 2 weeks. You people think sympathy gives you immunity. It doesn't." She tugged again, trying to lift Evelyn from her chair. I caught her wrist mid-motion. "You're making a mistake, Mrs. Caldwell." Her eyes flickered. "Oh, really? And who exactly are you to tell me what counts as a mistake?" "I'm the one who signs your property's medical coverage contracts," I said evenly. "And you just assaulted a patient inside my hospital." The clipboard in her other hand paused midair. The smirk didn't fade right away. It fought to stay, but the shift was visible, microscopic, like a tremor in glass before it shatters. If you think HOA presidents only control lawns and mailboxes, hit subscribe right now, because what you're about to see is how far they'll go when power becomes their religion. "I don't believe you," she said finally. "You're bluffing." "My name's Dr. Adam Rowan," I replied, "chairman of Northline Health Network. The hospital you're standing in, it's under my license. Every security camera in this room just recorded you putting your hands on a pregnant woman. You can check the brass plaque outside. It's got my family's name on it." Her mouth opened, then closed. For a heartbeat, she looked smaller, still cruel, still proud, but cornered by reality. "Your title means nothing here," she hissed. "No," I said, steady, "but decency does." The nurse rushed forward to help Evelyn, who was shaking but silent, one hand pressed protectively to her stomach. I guided her gently back into the seat Nora had tried to rip her from. She looked pale under the fluorescent lights. "I told you not to come alone," I murmured. She nodded, eyes glassy with fear and embarrassment. That ramp, the one Nora had fined us over, flashed in my mind. I built it myself, the same weekend Evelyn started using the wheelchair after the pregnancy complications. It wasn't just wood and bolts. It was the first thing that let her leave the house without pain. Nora called it architectural pollution. Said it ruined the community's symmetry. We appealed. She tripled the fine. 2 nights ago, when the stress made Evelyn's blood pressure spike, I drove her here myself. No ambulance, no time. And now, the same woman who caused it was dragging her across the hospital lobby like a criminal. The nurse whispered, "We'll take her inside right now, Dr. Rowan." "Thank you," I said, my voice tightening at the edges. Nora stepped back, adjusting her blazer. "This isn't over," she muttered. "Oh, it's just beginning," I told her. "Because what you did here tonight, this isn't HOA policy. It's a crime. And by morning, every resident you've bullied will see exactly who's been enforcing your rules." Her expression twisted, part fear, part disbelief. And she turned sharply toward the doors. The automatic glass parted with a hiss, swallowing her silhouette into the storm outside. I stood there, the echo of her heels still clicking in my head, and for the first time in months, I wasn't thinking like a doctor. I was thinking like a man whose home had become a battlefield. Evelyn's breathing steadied beside me, her fingers trembling around mine. "I'm okay," she whispered, but she wasn't. None of us were, not until people like Nora learned that power doesn't come from a clipboard. It comes from truth. As the doors closed behind her, I looked at the security camera above the nurse's station, its red light blinking steadily. Proof. Cold, clinical, undeniable, and somewhere deep inside, the part of me that used to save lives began to calculate how to dismantle an empire of fear, one rule at a time. The security camera's red light blinked above me as the automatic doors sealed out the rain. That small pulse of light, it was proof that the night wasn't just another story of a homeowner humiliated by a board president. It was evidence, and I intended to use it. But first, I had to get Evelyn home. She was lying in the observation ward, her hand resting on her stomach. The monitor beeped softly beside her. the steady rhythm reminding me of everything I stood to lose if I let this slide. The nurse finished checking her vitals and whispered, "She's stable now. The stress caused a spike, but the baby's fine." I thanked her quietly. Then I turned toward the window where rain streaked the glass like black ink. I could still hear Nora's voice echoing in my head. This isn't over. She was right. It wasn't. But not in the way she thought. By morning, I drove Evelyn home through a soaked sunrise. The neighborhood of Willow Crest looked sterile, perfect, empty, as if the whole place was designed by someone allergic to warmth. Every house the same height, every yard the same ratio of grass to stone. It wasn't community. It was control disguised as harmony. When I pulled into our driveway, the HOA violation notice was already waiting on the porch, sealed in plastic so the rain couldn't blur her threat. I tore it open. Notice of enforcement, unapproved structure, accessibility ramp. Below it, Nora's signature curved like a knife. The fine had been raised again, $7,100. Evelyn watched from inside the car. "She'll never stop, will she?" she asked. "She will," I said, folding the paper. "Just not the way she expects." Later that morning, I walked the ramp slowly, running my hand along the rail. I'd built it over 3 weekends, cedar planks, hand-sanded edges, steel bolts for stability. Every piece of it carried a memory. Evelyn's first confident steps outside after her bed rest weeks. Her smile when she could finally reach the mailbox without help. That ramp wasn't a violation. It was freedom made tangible. When I joined this neighborhood 2 years ago, I believed in its promise, a safe, quiet place for my wife to recover, a community that valued responsibility. But the HOA turned that promise into a weapon. I'd watch them fine a retired teacher for hanging wind chimes, threaten a veteran for painting his porch in muted blue. The board didn't protect standards. They enforced submission, and Nora, with her immaculate smile and endless rules, had made herself the high priestess of conformity. I stood at the curb as a silver SUV slowed by. It was Eli Vargas, the HOA accountant. His window rolled down halfway, and his eyes darted nervously toward Nora's house at the end of the street. "Dr. Rowan," he said quietly, "I saw what happened last night. It's all over the neighborhood group chat." I folded my arms. "And?" "She told everyone your wife faked her condition to get sympathy." He hesitated. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't even be telling you this. She's already planning to push the board to suspend your voting rights." There it was, the pattern I'd seen before in medical politics, now playing out on a smaller, meaner stage. Smear, isolate, dominate. "Eli," I said, my voice calm, "you know this isn't right. You handle the books. You've seen how she manipulates funds, haven't you?" He swallowed hard. "I can't talk about that. She made us sign confidentiality clauses. If I speak up, I lose everything." "You already are," I said. "Every day you stay quiet." He didn't answer. The SUV rolled away, leaving me alone in the drizzle. That evening, Evelyn sat on the couch with her blanket, scrolling her phone. "She's posted a statement," she said. "Says you threatened her at the hospital. Says she feared for her safety." I took the phone and read it myself. The lies were surgical, just enough truth to sound credible, just enough distortion to ruin reputation. But this time, she picked the wrong target. I walked to my office, turned on my computer, and opened the hospital's internal security portal. Every Northline facility backed up footage automatically to a cloud server. I searched by time and location, emergency department, 8:42 p.m., and there it was. Nora Caldwell, dragging Evelyn by the wrist, shouting words that burned through the audio feed. "You can't hide behind your pity act forever." I leaned back, breathing slow. Proof. Clean, admissible, time-stamped. I didn't need revenge. I needed exposure. Outside, thunder rolled across Willow Crest, shaking the glass. Evelyn called from the living room. "What are you doing?" "Starting the cure," I said, "one infection at a time." The red light on my router blinked as the upload began. The upload bar crawled across the screen, a slow blue inch that felt like oxygen returning to a sealed room. When it hit 100%, I exhaled and closed the laptop. The evidence was no longer trapped in this house. It lived in the cloud now, safe, undeniable, ready. But exposing a tyrant wasn't just about proof. It was about precision, and for that, I needed someone inside the system. By morning, the rain had cleared. The neighborhood looked deceptively peaceful, sunlight glinting off wet pavement, mailboxes standing like obedient soldiers. I drove to the community center, where the HOA kept its office above the fitness studio. Nora's Lexus was already in the reserved space, spotless as always. I wasn't there for her. I was there for the man who couldn't meet my eyes last night, Eli Vargas. When I walked in, he was hunched over a desk covered in neatly stacked folders. His tie hung loose, coffee gone cold beside his keyboard. He didn't notice me right away. His shoulders jerked at every sound from the hallway, his knee bouncing under the desk like a metronome of guilt. "Eli," I said quietly. He flinched, nearly spilling his coffee. "Dr. Rowan, what are you doing here?" His tone was polite, but his fingers tightened around a pen until it cracked. "I came to talk," I said. "Not about the fine, about Nora." His eyes darted toward the frosted glass door, where her name was printed in gold letters. He whispered, "You shouldn't be here. She checks the security logs. If she sees, then she'll know you have visitors," I interrupted. "That's all. She won't know what we discussed." He hesitated, rubbing the side of his neck like it hurt to hold up his own head. "You don't understand. She's dangerous. She's already threatened to ruin my mortgage if I say anything. I've got 2 kids in college, doctor. I can't afford her kind of war." I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "You think this is about money? She dragged my pregnant wife out of a hospital chair, Eli. This isn't an HOA dispute anymore. It's criminal." The words hit him hard. His shoulders sagged. "I saw the video," he admitted. "Someone posted a clip before it got deleted. I couldn't sleep all night." He set the broken pen down, staring at the ink on his fingers like it was blood. "She's been lying for months. She said the ramp. Expenses came from a special maintenance fund, but the checks never matched. Every payment she approves routes through a personal escrow labeled Beautification Initiative." "So, you know she's been stealing," I said. "I can't prove it without breaching confidentiality," he whispered, eyes flicking toward the ceiling camera. Sweat gathered at his temples. "She made me sign an NDA. I even typed it myself." I watched him, how his hands trembled, how his chest rose and fell like he was trying to breathe through water. The man wasn't evil. He was trapped. Nora's power didn't come from authority. It came from fear. I pulled a small card from my wallet and placed it on his desk. "That's Detective Ramos. He used to serve under me when I worked emergency response. He's internal affairs now. Call him. You won't have to leak anything. Just confirm what's true when asked." Eli stared at the card like it was radioactive. "If I call him, she'll know." "If you don't," I said, "she'll keep going until someone else ends up in a hospital bed." He looked up slowly. The light from the window caught his face, eyes rimmed red, jaw tight, resolve flickering like a candle in the wind. "You don't get it, doctor. She's not afraid of anyone. She thinks she owns this neighborhood." I leaned forward, voice steady. "Then it's time she learned what ownership really means." Outside the door, Nora's voice echoed down the hall, sharp, commanding. Eli's body went rigid. His hands hovered midair, frozen between panic and decision. I stepped back, giving him space. She passed the office without noticing, her heels clicking like a countdown. When the sound faded, Eli sank into his chair, head in his hands. "I'll think about it," he said finally. "That's all I ask," I replied. As I turned to leave, his reflection followed me in the glass, shoulders shaking, breath shallow, a man breaking the surface of his own fear for the first time. And I knew then, the cure wasn't just exposing her corruption. It was freeing the people she'd convinced they were powerless. The war for Willow Crest had already begun. They just didn't realize the walls were cracking from inside. By the time I stepped out of the HOA office, the afternoon heat had swallowed the rain. The air smelled like wet mulch and chlorine, the official scent of Willow Crest perfection. Behind me, through the glass, I could still see Eli's outline at his desk, motionless, staring at the card I'd left. A man hovering between fear and courage. The kind of man tyrants depend on to survive. I walked toward my car, checking my phone. A message from Evelyn. "She's posted again. You need to see this." When I got home, the front yard looked like a crime scene dressed as suburbia. Flyers were taped to every mailbox, laminated against the humidity. "Community alert, unsafe resident behavior" was stamped across the top, in bold, Red letters. Beneath it, my name, my photo. A cropped still from hospital footage, frozen mid-gesture as I reached for Nora's wrist. The caption beneath read, "Local man threatens HOA president inside ER." Evelyn stood on the porch, holding one of the flyers like it might burn her fingers. "She's turning neighbors against us," she said quietly. "She's trying to erase what actually happened," I replied. "She's using narrative as a weapon." Across the street, two women walking their dogs avoided eye contact. One of them whispered something, her tone brittle with gossip. Nora didn't need evidence. She just needed noise. Inside, I tossed the flyer on the kitchen counter and powered on my tablet. Her post was already spreading across the neighborhood forum. "I fear for my safety." Dr. Rowan's unstable behavior at the hospital left me shaken. Our board is reviewing disciplinary measures. It had 200 likes and 30 comments in under an hour. Most from residents who'd never met me, people I waved to every morning, now nodding along with a lie. Evelyn came up behind me. "You can't fight every rumor." "I don't have to," I said, scrolling. "I just have to show one truth." I uploaded the verified time-stamped clip from the hospital security feed to a private drive. My plan wasn't to release it yet. Timing mattered. Exposure too early looked like anger. I needed it to look like justice. When I stepped outside again, a black sedan idled in front of my driveway. The window rolled down, and Nora herself leaned out. Sunglasses, perfect smile, voice smooth as glass. "I see you've seen the flyers," she said. "Hard to miss," I answered. "You could have avoided all this, Dr. Rowan, if you just followed the rules. Rules don't protect anyone if you weaponize them." She tilted her head, pretending to sympathize. "You think this is about power? It's about order. People move here for peace, for safety. And right now, you're making everyone feel unsafe." "By existing?" I asked. "By building a ramp for my wife?" She smiled wider. "You'd be amazed what fear can justify." Then she reached into her purse and handed me a sealed envelope. "Official board notice. Your privileges as a resident are suspended pending investigation." I didn't open it. "Nora, the only investigation happening now is into you." Her smile froze. For the first time, a flicker of confusion cracked her mask. I let it linger. "Every word you said at the hospital was caught on camera. Every fine you filed has a paper trail. You built your empire on rules, but I built this community's hospital on accountability. Let's see which structure holds up longer." Her jaw clenched. "You think you can scare me with your name on a wall?" "No," I said. "I'll let the truth do it for me." She stared for another second, then rolled up the window and drove off. The sound of her tires. Grinding against the wet pavement was the sound of arrogance retreating. That night, I sat on the porch, the same ramp catching the faint glow from the streetlights. The neighborhood was quiet again, but too quiet. When peace comes too fast, it's the kind that hides decay beneath paint. Eli called just after 10. His voice trembled through the receiver. "She's doubling the fines for anyone who speaks to you. She's terrified, Adam. I've never seen her like this." "Good," I said. "Fear means we're closing in. I'm sending you something, proof she's rerouting funds into an escrow account under her sister's name. It's not much, but..." "It's enough," I interrupted. "Send it." I looked down the street where porch lights flickered like anxious eyes. Tomorrow, the lies would start collapsing under their own weight. The cure had found its next symptom. The next morning, I drove straight to Northline's downtown headquarters, 20 floors of glass and order, the opposite of Willow Crest's manicured oppression. From my office window, the city looked alive, indifferent, and beautifully uncontrolled. I needed that reminder. Control was Nora's language. I preferred precision. I played the security footage again on the conference screen, the moment Nora grabbed Evelyn's wrist, the sound of her shouting, the flash of panic across my wife's face. The clip was exactly 14 seconds long. That was all it would take to end Nora Caldwell's career as a community leader. But I couldn't release it yet. Not through me. It had to surface through the proper channels, ethics, compliance, and eventually law enforcement. It needed to be untouchable, not retaliatory. Detective Ramos walked in without knocking, still wearing his department windbreaker, coffee in one hand. "Heard from Vargas," he said. I didn't look up. That was fast. "He's nervous, but he's talking. Says the HOA has been running a slush fund under something called Beautification Initiative. You were right. Money's moving off books." I turned the monitor toward him. And now, you see the human cost. He watched the clip silently, jaw tightening. You want me to go after her? Not yet, I said. She's already panicking. Let her make the next move. He frowned. You're playing this like a chess match. No, I replied. Like surgery. You don't cut until you know where the infection ends. When he left, I leaned back in my chair and scrolled through the HOA's public records on my laptop. Most of the financial reports were squeaky clean, too clean. Then I noticed something odd. The maintenance reserve deposits didn't match the actual bank transaction dates. Someone had doctored the timestamps, and the digital trail pointed back to a single login, vargaswillowcrestadmin.com. Eli had done it himself, probably under Nora's orders. No wonder he was terrified. At noon, I called the county records office and requested a property compliance audit on Willow Crest Estates. Officially, it was standard procedure for communities under legal dispute. Unofficially, it was the first domino. Once the audit landed, every financial inconsistency would surface, and Nora would be too busy defending her books to notice the noose tightening. By afternoon, my phone buzzed again. Evelyn. She's outside, she whispered. I froze. Outside the house? Yes. She's taking pictures of the ramp again? I think she brought someone from the board. I left the office immediately. The drive felt longer than it should have. When I turned into our street, Nora stood at the curb with a man in a tailored suit, pointing at our porch ramp like it was a crime scene. A few neighbors watched from windows, pretending not to. I parked and stepped out. You're trespassing, I said. The man beside her smiled politely. Mr. Rowan, I'm attorney Richard Ames, counsel for the Willow Crest Homeowners Association. We're conducting a compliance review. On private property? Under HOA Charter subsection 4A, visual assessment is permitted in cases of ongoing violations. Funny, I said, because subsection 4C requires 24-hour written notice. You've got none. Nora folded her arms, her perfume cutting through the heat. We're well within our rights. You've ignored every order we've issued. You issued crimes, not orders, I said. And now you're standing in front of a witness who's already shared your financial data with law enforcement. That hit her. I saw it, the micro flinch in her jaw. Her lawyer looked confused. What data? You'll find out when the county audit arrives, I said. You should both be getting copies by tomorrow morning. The lawyer straightened, forcing composure. If you're threatening litigation, I don't threaten, I said. I verify. They left soon after, Nora's heels stabbing the pavement, her silence more telling than any insult she could have thrown. Inside, Evelyn waited by the window, her face pale. What are you doing, Adam? You're provoking her. I'm preparing her, I said, for accountability. That night, I sat at the dining table, drafting an official report for Ramos. The evidence was lined up now: financial misappropriation, abuse of authority, assault on private medical property. Each category perfectly defined, each time stamped. Eli's drive arrived by encrypted email just before midnight. I clicked it open. Dozens of invoices, dozens of falsified signatures, and at the top of every document, her initials, NC. It wasn't just corruption, it was greed with a signature. Outside, thunder rolled again, low and distant, echoing off the perfect homes of Willow Crest. Nora thought her empire was built on order. She never realized how fragile glass looks when a storm's on the way. By dawn, the storm had passed, but the air still carried that metallic heaviness, the kind that settles after lightning has found its mark. I hadn't slept. The documents Eli sent looped through my mind all night, line after line of forged signatures and false invoices. Nora's empire wasn't built on bylaws. It was built on theft. At 7, my phone buzzed with a message from Detective Ramos. Audit filed. County compliance officers heading to Willow Crest this afternoon. Keep it civil, I smiled grimly. Civil. That word had lost all meaning in this place. When I walked into Northline headquarters, the lobby screens were flashing morning news segments. One headline stopped me cold. HOA president accused of harassing pregnant resident, footage leaked. I knew that voice on the clip before I even saw her face. Nora's tirade, captured from a nurse's phone, had gone viral overnight. Someone, maybe Callie, had leaked it early. The comments were relentless. How does someone like this run a community? That poor woman. Cancel that HOA. Evelyn called minutes later. Adam, it's everywhere. The board chat is melting down. Half the neighborhood wants her out. The other half's terrified she'll sue them. Let her, I said. Fear's her only currency. Once it's gone, she's broke. By noon, the county audit team arrived. I followed them to the Willowcrest Community Hall, a pristine white building that smelled like disinfectant and fake lavender. 2 officers unpacked folders on the main table, while residents hovered near the back, whispering. The usual calm suburban mask was cracking. Nora swept in like nothing had happened. Red blazer, perfect posture, sunglasses hiding the chaos underneath. This is harassment, she announced. Our records are impeccable. The lead auditor, a woman with steel gray hair, looked unimpressed. Then you won't mind us reviewing them. I stood near the doorway, silent observer. But when she caught my reflection in the window, her smile faltered. You, she spat. You think you can humiliate me publicly? I've run this community for 10 years. And in 10 hours, you've undone it, I said. Her voice rose, shrill enough to hush the room. You leaked that video. No, I replied. Your actions did. The auditor began flipping through Eli's spreadsheets, the ones he'd marked with red flags. Mrs. Caldwell, can you explain why these maintenance funds were rerouted to an account under your sister's name? Nora froze. That's clerical error. And the repeated digital authorizations under your login? I have staff who also work at your law firm, the auditor cut in. The silence afterward was surgical. You could hear the fluorescent lights hum. Eli entered quietly through the side door, pale but resolute. I gave him a small nod. He didn't nod back, but his jaw was set. The look of a man who'd finally chosen a side. He handed a flash drive to the auditor. There's more, he said. Backdated transactions, falsified resident approvals. I can testify she made me do it. Nora turned on him instantly. You coward. After everything I protected you from... He cut her off. You didn't protect me. You used me. For once her voice broke. You think he's innocent? She shouted at me. He forged half those documents. And you signed the other half, I said. Don't pretend you didn't hold the pen. The auditor looked up. Mrs. Caldwell, we'll need you to stay available for questioning. Until this is resolved, your authority over the HOA is suspended. That single word, suspended, hung in the air like a bell toll. Nora's face drained of color. The board members at the back started whispering, a few recording on their phones. Her lawyer tried to speak, but she shoved past him, nearly tripping on her heels as she stormed toward the door. When she brushed by me, I said softly, You're not being punished for power, Nora. You're being punished for forgetting what it was for. She stopped but didn't turn. You'll regret this, she hissed. Maybe, I said, but at least I'll regret it in peace. Outside, the sun broke through, sharp and bright against the polished cars. The reporters waiting by the gate swarmed her as she stepped into view, shouting questions, cameras flashing. Eli stood beside me, hands trembling but his eyes clear. What happens now? Now, I said, watching her struggle to smile for the cameras. We let the truth finish what we started. Reporters were still circling Nora's car when I left the community hall. The flash of cameras turned her red blazer into a flare against the white sidewalks. I didn't need to watch her leave. She'd just crossed the line from feared to exposed, and people like her never recover from that. But the truth wasn't finished. Proof meant nothing without context, and context was still locked in one man's conscience. Eli Vargas called that evening, voice cracking through static. Dr. Rowan, can we meet somewhere private, not at the office? Where? I asked. He hesitated. The hospital parking deck, top floor, midnight. I almost said no. I'd had enough of secrecy and fear, but something in his tone told me this wasn't another delay. It was surrender. When I arrived, the lot was half lit, the kind of place that swallows sound. Eli stood near the edge, a folder clutched to his chest, his tie gone, sleeves rolled up like a man halfway undressing from guilt. He looked smaller under the sodium light, eyes hollow but clear. I'm done hiding, he said before I could speak. I brought everything. He handed me the folder, hands shaking. Inside were bank statements, internal emails, even HOA meeting transcripts. The ink smelled fresh, like he'd printed them right before leaving. You didn't have to risk this, I said quietly. Yes, I did. He leaned against the concrete barrier, rubbing the back of his neck. You were right about her, about all of it. Nora didn't just misuse funds, she falsified liens, forced residents into paying off non-existent repairs. And when I tried to question it, she threatened to tell the board I'd been taking kickbacks. Were you? I asked. He looked at me, pain flickering behind the exhaustion. Once, a small one, she caught me. After that, she owned me. The words came out in bursts, raw and fast, like confession and therapy tangled together. She made me move money through personal accounts, said it was temporary transfers. Then she'd pay them back through false invoices. It looked clean on paper, but it was never hers to spend. She used HOA funds to remodel her sister's property, even pay off a lawsuit from her last firm. I flipped through the pages. Everything matched what I'd seen before, only deeper, uglier. Every transaction had her initials at the bottom. Every signature dated right after board meetings that never happened. She told me she'd bury me if I talked, he continued. Said she had the city attorney in her pocket. I believed her. I shouldn't have. I watched him, the way his hands twisted together like he was trying to wring out the shame. Why now? I asked. Because of your wife, he said. His voice broke for the first time. I saw her face in that video. That moment when Nora yanked her. That wasn't about money or rules. That was cruelty for its own sake. I realized I'd been keeping the kind of person in power who would hurt someone like her. Wind swept across the deck, carrying the faint echo of sirens from downtown. He lowered his gaze. I'm prepared to testify. Ramos already called, but I need one thing from you. What's that? Make sure this doesn't just end with her arrest. Make sure people know how the system let her do it, how we all did. I nodded slowly. You'll have your chance, but from now on, you don't work for her. You work for the truth. He laughed weakly. Never thought truth would pay less than corruption. Before leaving, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small USB drive. There's one more thing, her private email archive. I backed it up before she locked me out. It's got everything, from her fake compliance reports to a list of residents she targeted for fines. You sure you want me to have this? I don't want to. I need to. He turned to go, then stopped. She won't go quietly, you know. She's going to smear you harder than ever. I expect nothing less, I said. But this time, she won't be fighting a rumor. She'll be fighting her own words. Eli looked out at the skyline, eyes glassy. Maybe after this I can finally walk past my own house without feeling like I work for the enemy. You will, I told him, because by tomorrow, the enemy's running out of places to hide. He nodded once and disappeared down the stairwell, leaving the folder in my hands. The night felt different now, still tense, but breathable. Somewhere between guilt and courage, a man had switched sides, and the truth finally had a heartbeat. I drove straight from the hospital parking deck to Northline headquarters. The city was still asleep, but my mind wasn't. Eli's folder sat on the passenger seat, heavy as a verdict. Every lie Nora had built her power on was in there, signed, dated, traceable. She'd written her own confession in ink. By sunrise, I was in the boardroom, floor-to-ceiling windows reflecting the first gray streaks of dawn. I called Ramos first. He answered on the second ring. She's done, I said. I know. Vargas called me after you met. We're processing the evidence now. I'm sending you the USB drive, I told him. It's her private archive. Emails, falsified approvals, everything. But I want one thing in return. What's that? When the charges go public, make sure the story focuses on the system, not just her. Ramos sighed. You really want to turn this into a reform crusade? She's a symptom, I said. If we don't treat the disease, there'll be another Nora in 6 months. After hanging up, I poured coffee and opened my laptop. I started drafting what would become my first public statement since the ER incident. It wasn't an attack, it was an explanation. I wrote about accountability, about power used as a weapon, about the difference between community and control. Every line had to be surgical, truth without venom. By noon, I met with Northline's legal advisor, Marissa Chen, in her glass office overlooking the city courthouse. She read Eli's documents silently, eyes narrowing behind her glasses. This is airtight, she said. She's not just guilty of fraud, She's guilty of organized misuse of fiduciary authority. That's felony territory. She'll deny everything? I said. Marissa smiled faintly. She can deny it all she wants. Numbers don't lie. We spent the next 2 hours mapping out the steps, file the evidence chain with the county auditor, alert the ethics board, and prepare a coordinated public hearing. But I wasn't interested in a quiet investigation behind closed doors. Nora built her power through spectacle, so I was going to end her with one. By mid-afternoon, I sent a message to the Willow Crest community thread. Public Town Assembly, Friday 6 p.m., Willow Park Pavilion. Topic: HOA transparency and resident protection. No accusations, no bait, just curiosity disguised as formality. I copied the message to the HOA email list, ensuring Nora herself received it. If I knew her, she'd see it as a stage. That was the point. When I got home, Evelyn was sitting by the ramp with her tablet, reading comments from the viral video. "You've become some kind of symbol," she said softly. "People from other neighborhoods are sharing their own stories, fake fines, intimidation, threats." I knelt beside her, brushing her hand. Symbols fade, systems last. I just need to make sure this one breaks where it started. She looked at me for a long moment. "You're not doing this for revenge anymore, are you?" "No," I said, "for prevention." That evening I met Eli again, this time at a quiet cafe on the edge of town. He looked lighter somehow, like a man who'd stopped running. "She knows I gave you the files," he said. "Her lawyer called me this morning, threatened to reconsider my employment status." "She can't fire you," I reminded him. "She's suspended." He chuckled darkly. "Tell that to the board members who still believe she's innocent." "They'll believe differently after Friday," I said. "You'll be there." He hesitated. "You really think they'll let me speak?" "I don't need their permission," I said. "It's a community meeting, not her courtroom. You'll have a microphone and the truth. That's more than she's ever had." Before I left, I handed him a printed copy of the audit results, public records now. "Keep this," I told him. "If anything happens to me or Evelyn before Friday, you deliver this to every news outlet in the city." He stared at the papers, throat tight. "You think she'd go that far?" "I think people are most dangerous when the walls finally start closing." Driving home, I passed through Willow Crest again. The street was quiet, blinds half drawn. But the silence didn't feel oppressive anymore. It felt expectant, like a neighborhood holding its breath. When I parked, I stood for a moment at the foot of the ramp. The wood was still damp from last night's rain, glistening in the porch light. It was supposed to be a simple thing, a gesture of care. Instead, it had become a line in the sand. Friday was 2 days away, and when that day came, I wouldn't just expose Nora Caldwell's corruption. I'd redefine what authority meant in this place, and who it really served. Friday came like the hush before a courtroom verdict. Sky clear, wind still, the kind of day that tricks you into thinking peace means safety. I spent the morning reviewing everything with Ramos and Marissa, the audit confirmation, Eli's testimony, the video evidence, the timeline. Everything was ready, but the one thing that couldn't be scripted was how a neighborhood would react when illusion finally shattered. The public assembly was scheduled for 6 p.m. at Willow Park Pavilion, the same space the HOA used for summer galas and homeowner fundraisers. This time, there were no banners, no champagne tables, just rows of folding chairs facing a portable projector screen. At the edge of the stage, AEU, Northline emblem stood beside the county auditor's seal, silent but unmistakable. The authority was no longer hers. By 5:30, residents were already gathering. Some came out of curiosity, others out of anger, most out of fear of missing whatever came next. They clustered in small groups, whispering, stealing glances at Evelyn, who sat in the front row beside me. She looked calm, one hand resting over her stomach, the other clutching the necklace I'd given her after our miscarriage years ago. She didn't need to say anything. Her presence was reminder enough of what this fight had cost us. Eli arrived right on time. His shirt was pressed, but his face pale. "You sure about this?" he asked quietly. I nodded. "You're not exposing her. You're liberating yourself." He took a breath that sounded like it had been waiting years to escape. "Then let's end it." At 5:58, the last car rolled up. Black sedan, tinted windows. Nora Caldwell stepped out in a navy suit instead of her usual red. A deliberate choice. Power by disguise. Her lawyer trailed behind her, briefcase in hand, eyes already scanning the crowd. A few residents actually clapped, others didn't move. When she took the stage, she smiled like she was still queen of the cul-de-sac. "Thank you all for coming," she began, voice honeyed. "I know recent events have created confusion, but tonight I want to restore clarity and unity to our community." I watched from the side, arms crossed, the projector remote in my pocket. Ramos stood at the back in plain clothes, recording everything. Nora's voice floated across the pavilion like perfume, soft, practiced. "It's easy to let outsiders and the media twist a story. It's harder to remember we are a family. Mistakes were made, yes, but none of them justify the harassment and invasion of privacy that my family and I have endured." I stepped forward. "Enough." The microphone squealed as I took it from the stand. The crowd turned. Nora's smile didn't falter, but her hand tightened around the podium. "You've spoken for this community long enough," I said. "It's time they hear from the people you silenced." I gestured to Eli, who walked up, gripping the edge of his folder like a lifeline. The tremor in his hands was visible, but his voice was clear. "My name is Eli Vargas," he said. "I've worked as the HOA accountant for 6 years, and I can't keep pretending anymore." A ripple went through the crowd. Nora's lawyer started forward, but Ramos intercepted him with a quiet shake of the head. Eli continued, words spilling faster now. "For years, Mrs. Caldwell directed me to reroute funds into personal accounts, hers, her sister's, even her attorney's firm. I forged signatures, altered reports, and hid invoices under categories labeled beautification and community wellness. I did it because she threatened to destroy me, but every dollar she stole came from you, from your dues, from your trust." Gasps broke out. Some people stood. Nora's face went white, the veneer cracking. "He's lying!" she shouted. I clicked the projector remote. The screen behind us came to life with the first page of the county audit. Line items highlighted in red, her digital signature at the bottom, then came screenshots of her emails, approving payments under fake projects. Finally, the 14-second ER clip, the one that started everything. The image froze on the frame where she grabbed Evelyn's wrist. The pavilion went dead silent. "You called it order," I said into the microphone, "but it was control. You called it community. It was coercion. And tonight, the truth calls it what it really is. Abuse." Someone in the crowd started clapping, then another, then dozens. The sound built like a wave, furious, cleansing. Nora stood frozen as Ramos stepped forward, badge flashing. Her lawyer whispered something to her, but she didn't move, not even when he gently guided her toward the waiting county officers. Eli looked at me, tears in his eyes. "I thought I'd feel ruined," he whispered. "Instead, I just feel free." "That's what truth does," I said. "It breaks chains louder than applause." The projector light flickered across Nora's empty podium. The symbol of her power had become the evidence of her downfall. The applause still echoed through Willow Park Pavilion when the county officers led Nora Caldwell away. The crowd parted like a tide, some people whispering, others filming, a few just standing in stunned silence. For the first time since we'd moved into Willow Crest, the neighborhood's fear didn't belong to her. It belonged to what she'd created, but victory wasn't peace, not yet. I knew the system she built wouldn't collapse overnight. A power vacuum always breeds chaos before healing starts, and that chaos was already stirring. The next morning, the HOA board called for an emergency session at their temporary office, the old lakeside event center near the marina. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same board that enabled Nora for years now wanted my help, restoring trust. I went anyway. If there was a chance to rebuild this place on something better than control, I wasn't going to leave it to chance. When I arrived, the parking lot was half full. Eli stood by the entrance, clutching a folder against his chest. His nervousness had softened into something steadier. Guilt turning into responsibility. "She's not talking," he said as I approached. "Her lawyer's handling everything now." "She doesn't need to talk," I said. "Her silence says enough." Inside, the boardroom was stripped bare. No portraits, no plaques, no slogan banners about community pride. Just a long table and too many eyes that couldn't meet mine. The interim chairwoman, a middle-aged resident named Margaret Wills, cleared her throat. "Dr. Rowan, thank you for coming. We owe you an apology." I didn't answer. Apologies were cheap when they arrived after exposure. Margaret continued, "The audit findings confirmed that over $160,000 in resident funds were diverted. We've frozen the accounts and will cooperate fully with the county. The community is demanding immediate reform. Some want to dissolve the HOA entirely." "Let them vote," I said. "That's the problem," she replied. "Without leadership, this place will fall apart." Eli spoke up, his voice stronger than I'd ever heard it. "No, it won't. People can manage their own lives if you stop treating them like children." Margaret hesitated, then sighed. "You might be right. But for now, we need to keep order until the transition." She looked at me. "Would you consider serving as interim compliance officer, just until the next election?" I almost laughed. "You spent months calling me a rule breaker. Now you want me to enforce them." "Not enforce," she said quietly. "Rebuild." For a moment I thought of Evelyn, of her sitting by the ramp, smiling as neighbors finally waved again, no longer afraid to be seen. That ramp wasn't just a structure, it was proof that compassion could outlast control. Maybe rebuilding was worth it. "I'll help," I said finally, "but only if transparency comes first. No closed meetings, no hidden funds, every decision in public." Margaret nodded. "Agreed." Eli exhaled like he'd been holding that breath for years. "Then let's start by returning what's left." He opened the folder and spread a series of forms across the table. Refund authorizations for every resident Nora had overcharged. They deserve to see something fixed before they believe anything's changed. We worked for hours, verifying signatures and authorizing releases. It felt mechanical at first, but then something shifted. The fear that had once filled this place began to thin, replaced by the quiet rhythm of accountability. By late afternoon, the marina's reflection glowed gold through the windows. Outside, kids were biking again. A couple walked their dog past the pier without glancing over their shoulders. Normal life was returning, cautious, but real. As I packed my briefcase, Margaret said, "Dr. Rowan, after all this, why didn't you just move away?" I paused, looking out at the water. "Because people like Nora count on us to leave. They grow in the silence we abandon. Someone had to stay." When I stepped outside, Eli followed me to the lot. "She'll face trial soon," he said. "I'll testify, but when this is done, I think I'm leaving Willow Crest." "You've earned that," I told him, "but don't forget, you helped end something that hurt people. That's not running, that's redemption." He smiled faintly. "Maybe. I just wish it hadn't taken so long." "Change always does," I said. As the sun dipped, below the marina, I looked back at the event center, its glass walls reflecting the lake, the flags hanging still above the door. For the first time, Willow Crest didn't look like a fortress. It looked like something fragile, finally breathing again. By the following week, Willow Crest wasn't quiet anymore. It was restless. The viral footage had turned our neighborhood into a headline, and the county's decision to hold an open hearing only amplified the noise. They were calling it a community accountability forum, but everyone knew what it really was: Judgment Day. It was scheduled at the Willow Crest High Auditorium, a neutral space large enough to hold the crowd. Rows of seats filled fast, residents, reporters, county officials, even neighboring HOA members who came to watch the empire's collapse. The stage was set with 3 tables, one for the county review panel, one for the interim HOA board, and one for the accused, Nora Caldwell. She arrived late, escorted by her attorney. Gone were the blazers and polished smiles. She looked smaller, but her eyes were the same, sharp, predatory, defiant. She scanned the audience until her gaze landed on me, front row beside Evelyn. She smirked, as if to remind me that even now, she'd rather burn the house than surrender the match. Margaret Wills took the stage first. "This hearing," she announced, "is to address the misuse of authority and funds within Willow Crest's Homeowners Association." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Cameras clicked. Nora crossed her arms. The panel began reading the audit summary. Financial irregularities, harassment reports, falsified violations. Each word was a nail in the coffin of her reputation. But Nora stayed stone still until Eli Vargas's name was called. He stood slowly, visibly nervous, his collar damp under the lights. When he approached the podium, the room fell quiet. "My name is Eli Vargas," he said, voice trembling but growing steadier. For 6 years, I served as the HOA's accountant under Mrs. Caldwell. During that time, I participated in actions I knew were wrong. I falsified documents under her direction. I hid transactions that shouldn't exist. And I'm here to say, I'm sorry. The crowd shifted, some shocked, some forgiving. He took a shaky breath. I'm not proud of what I did, but I can't let the truth die buried in her paperwork. Nora Caldwell stole from every one of you, not just your money, your trust. Nora shot up from her seat. Lies, she screamed. This is a setup. The panel chair banged her gavel. Mrs. Caldwell, you'll have your turn. I am the HOA, Nora shouted, her voice cracking under the echo of the microphone. Without me, this place will rot. You all begged for order, and I gave it to you. I stood. You gave us fear, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. And when people stopped fearing you, you started breaking them instead. Dozens of phones turned toward me. Reporters scribbled. Nora's glare found me again, shaking with fury. You think you're a hero, Dr. Rowan? You humiliated me, destroyed my name, my career. You did that yourself, I said. All I did was turn on the light. The crowd erupted, some clapping, some gasping. The panel motioned for order, but the momentum had shifted. Residents began standing, one by one. A veteran I'd once seen fined for hanging a flag stepped forward. She threatened to foreclose on me for painting my shutters navy blue. Then a teacher spoke. She made me remove a wheelchair ramp from my classroom door because it wasn't uniform. Then another voice. She charged me $500 for planting wildflowers that didn't match her approved color palette. It spread like wildfire, an open confession of collective exhaustion. Every voice that rose stripped another layer from her authority. Nora backed away from the podium, face pale, hands gripping the edge of the table. The panel chair turned to her. Mrs. Caldwell, do you wish to respond to these claims? Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. The silence was louder than any denial. Evelyn reached for my hand, her eyes glistening. You did it, she whispered. No, I said softly. They did. Ramos stepped onto the stage, presenting an official document. By order of the county prosecutor's office, he said, Mrs. Caldwell is to be taken into custody pending formal charges for fraud, embezzlement, and harassment. The officers approached. Nora didn't fight this time. She just looked at the crowd, her crowd, as if seeing them for the first time. Then she whispered something I couldn't quite catch before they led her off stage. When the doors closed behind her, the room broke into applause. Not the frenzied kind from before, but something steadier, warmer, relief mixed with resolve. The panel chair nodded toward me. Dr. Rowan, any closing words? I rose slowly, facing the crowd. No one should ever fear the place they call home, I said. Rules mean nothing without humanity. Let this be the last time we forget that. The applause grew again, thunder rolling through the auditorium. For the first time, Willowcrest wasn't silent or afraid. It was alive. The applause followed me out of the auditorium and into the cool night air. For the first time in months, I could breathe without that weight pressing behind my ribs. The courthouse lights across the street glowed like sentinels, steady and clean. Nora Caldwell was behind those walls now, not as a ruler, but as a case number. Evelyn slipped her hand into mine as we walked toward the car. You kept your promise, she said softly. What promise? The one you made after the miscarriage, that we'd build something no one could take from us. I looked back at the crowd spilling out of the building, neighbors who once hid behind curtains now laughing, talking, alive. Maybe that's what this really was, I said. Not a fight, a rebuild. By the next week, the story had traveled far beyond Willow Crest. News anchors debated the HOA power problem. Talk shows dissected the footage of Nora's meltdown. And through it all, I stayed quiet. The victory didn't need my voice. It needed time to settle into something lasting. The county appointed an external oversight committee to monitor all HOA transitions for the next year. Margaret Wills became interim chair until the community vote. Eli was named financial officer, his full cooperation recognized in the final report. Redemption had a face now, nervous smile, shaking hands, and a backbone rebuilt one confession at a time. A month later, Willowcrest voted to dissolve the HOA entirely. The result wasn't even close, 92% in favor. When the announcement came, residents gathered at Willow Park for what they called Freedom Night. No speeches, no gavel, no rules, just families on blankets, music from someone's speaker, and the sound of children playing under streetlights that didn't flicker with fear anymore. I stood at the edge of it all, watching. Evelyn sat nearby, her belly rounder, the glow of peace replacing the anxiety that once shadowed her face. She waved me over, laughing when she saw Eli trying to grill skewers like a man making peace with imperfection. "You should say something," she whispered. "People are looking at you." I shook my head. "I'm just a neighbor now." "Exactly," she said. "That's what makes it mean more." So I did. I stepped up onto the small park stage where the HOA banners used to hang and looked out at the faces before me, every one of them carrying the same quiet disbelief that peace had finally returned. "I don't have a speech," I began. "Just a thought. We didn't win tonight because a judge or detective stepped in. We won because we stopped believing that silence keeps us safe, because we remembered that community isn't paperwork, it's people, and that the laws worth enforcing are the ones written in decency, not fine print." They clapped, some cheered, but I kept my voice even. We can't erase what happened here, and we shouldn't. Let it remind us what fear sounds like, and how fast it spreads when no one speaks up. And when the next Nora tries to rise somewhere else, maybe one of you will already know what to do. I paused, letting the wind carry the weight of it. If you want more stories of homeowners standing up to HOA tyranny, hit subscribe right now, share your story in the comments, and let me know where you're watching from. A few people laughed softly at the line. They thought I was joking, but I meant every word. Stories like ours weren't fiction anymore. They were warnings. Later that night, after the crowd thinned, I walked home alone. The porch light glowed across the ramp. The wood sanded smooth again after the storm. Evelyn had gone inside, humming softly, the kind of quiet only a healed house knows. I sat on the swing and let it creak gently beneath me, the same way it did before all of this began. I thought about Nora's final look in that courtroom, the brief flicker of realization when power slipped from her grasp. It wasn't hatred, it was fear, because when you spend years controlling others, freedom looks like chaos. But to everyone else, it feels like breathing. Eli's words echoed in my mind. Make sure it doesn't end with her arrest. He was right. Justice is never the end. It's the maintenance that comes after. The daily work of staying decent, staying vigilant, staying human. The night air carried faint laughter from the park down the street, the sound of something pure reclaiming space. For the first time since moving to Willow Crest, the quiet didn't feel like control. It felt earned.